Welcome back to the Ed Show. President Obama is going after Mitt Romney where it counts. Romney claims to be the job creator. So here's the Obama campaign's ad about Romney's experience at Bain Capital.
They made as much money off it as they could, and they closed it down. They filed for bankruptcy without any concern for the families or the communities.
It was like a vampire. He came in and sucked the life out of us.
It was like watching an old friend bleed to death.
As I look around at the millions of Americans without work, it breaks my heart.
He's running for president, and if he's going to run the country the way he ran our business, I wouldn't want him there. He would be so out of touch with the average person in this country. How could you care? How could you care for the average working person if you feel that way?
The ad tells the story of GST Steel. When Romney was at Bain Capital, the steel company was loaded up with debt and then sent into bankruptcy. Its workers lost their jobs and their pensions were devastated. The Romney campaign countered with its own ad about Steel Dynamics and how it was a big success under Bain Capital. But Steel Dynamics, wait a minute now, they got plenty of government subsidies and tax breaks. Of course, this is Mitt Romney's second time around trying to defend his private sector jobs record, thanks to Newt Gingrich's old super PAC.
This film is about one such raider and his firm. Mitt Romney became CEO of Bain Capital the day the company was formed. His mission? To reap massive rewards for himself and his investors.
Mitt Romney, them guys, they don't care who I am.
He's for small businesses. No, he isn't.
Let's turn to Dave Foster tonight here on the Ed Show, a former union representative for laid-off workers at GS Steel. Mr. Foster, good to have you with us. You were there. Tell us what happened to GS Steel under Romney's Bain Capital. How did it all unfold?
Well, thanks a lot for having me here, Ed. I appreciate the opportunity to tell the story of what happened to the steel workers at GST Steel in Kansas City. This was a game of heads I win, tails you lose. When Bain Capital went in 1993, put a very little bit of their own money down, borrowed the rest to buy the GST Steel plant. Then they turned around immediately, paid themselves back their own investment with borrowed money, and proceeded over a course of years to lever the company up with unsustainable amounts of debt so that by the end of the 1990s, the company had $500 million in debt. It simply couldn't survive. It was an example of terrible management on the part of the business.
Okay, so when Mitt Romney is out on the campaign trail and he says it just breaks his heart when he sees these unemployed people, you have a different opinion of that?
I have a completely different opinion, Ed. I was the person that went down in the Union Hall and stood with hundreds of steel workers, with steelworker retirees, with spouses in their 70s and 80s. I was the one that had to tell them the company was in bankruptcy, that their retiree health insurance, $100 million of it was gone, their pensions were being reduced. I heard their stories of how kids were dropping out of college, how pensioners didn't know whether or not they could get operations or leave money to their widow.
And Bain walked with the cash.
Story, and there was no one from Bain around.
Okay, but they walked with the cash. I mean, they underfunded pensions. They changed benefits. They made it so the company would go bankrupt. They took theirs and left you guys hanging.
That's exactly right, Ed. When Bain bought GST Steel, they bought it for cash and the assumption of obligations. And among those obligations was the $100 million in accrued retiree benefits that were owed the hundreds of GST steel workers and those who had retired before them. Romney walked in knowing he obligated to pay that money, but when the going got tough, he walked away, took his own quick profits up front, left the steel workers behind, cratered their jobs, cratered their community.
And now you know the rest of the story. Well, today, President Obama's former economic advisor on the automobile industry, Steve Ratner, he said that Obama's Bain ad was unfair because it wasn't Bain's mission to create jobs. That really is the point, isn't it? What's your response to that?
Well, that really gets under my skin, Ed. The fact is that you judge a businessman by the values and record of the businesses that they own and run. And the case of GST Steel was one of an extremely poorly managed business. It was one in which Smart people in the steel industry know it's a cyclical business. They know you don't lever up a company like that with debt so that in the hard times you can't pay your bills. But that's exactly what Mitt Romney did.
Yeah.
It was bad management, and it was a story of bad values.
Dave Foster, thanks for your story tonight here on The Ed Show. We'll do it again. Thank you. Appreciate it.